everyone. I'm Rajeshri. A very warm welcome to you all in today's episode. Sorry. And a huge thanks for being with me in this new experimental musical journey of mine. Today, as the title suggests, we all know that we are going to celebrate the Wonder Lady, a virtuoso pianist, a composer, a very renowned music teacher of 19th century Romantic era period in Western classical music. She is none other than Clara Schumann, who all have watched my past two episodes. You've seen that I've tried to discover Robert Schumann, who was Clara Schumann's husband and love of life. So virtually, I have been kind of living with the Schumann for past 2 months. And as I always try to do my episode a little differently, I am going to share my personal realization and view about this Wonder Lady before I talk about the historical informations about her. There is no doubt that she was the undisputed gem as a virtuoso pianist. Categorically, I'm not using the word female because she was not only at par, she was even better than most of her contemporary pianist virtuoso at her time. And the main thing which attracted me to do this episode is life had thrown a huge amount of challenges towards her at her. But she perceived and looked at the world through her art in the form of music. She transformed all her tears of grief into tears of joy through her piano, through her music, not only for her, but for her audience. I genuinely feel that she hid all her sorrow and pain under each note of the piano. And as soon as she touched and played her piano, they got transformed into the melody and harmony, music as a whole. So, the best way I would make a proper start of this episode by reading a poem written by a dramatic poet of 19th century called Franz Greel Basel. He wrote this poem after Clara did a tour with her father at the age of 19 in Vienna. That was 1838. The Viennese audience actually showed her that much admiration that in the concert halls, the owners, they had to call the police because there were fights to buy the tickets. It was as popular as a Paganini or Thalberg show. And the emperor showed her the honor by giving her the highest award, which is Royal and Imperial Chamber Virtuoso. And he did tell her in 1838 March, before she left Vienna, that he did it for his personal satisfaction, and he did it going out of his way. It was an exception. So, in one of the concerts, she performed Beethoven's F minor sonata, and after that, Franz Grillparzer wrote these lines. A wizard, weary of the world and life, locked up the treasures of his magic art within a casket, strong and firmly sealed, then threw the key upon the waves and died. The smaller men bestirred themselves in vain. No tool was strong enough to force the seal, and master and enchantment slept alike. A shepherd maiden, playing by the sea, looked on at the profane and eager search, with wise and unconscious eyes, as children do, dipped her white fingers in the flowing tide, grasped something, raised it, and the key was found. Then she sprang up with wildly beating heart. The casket glowed before her as with life. The key is in and turned, the lid flies open. The imprisoned spirits rising owned her charm and innocence, then moved obedient to the touch of her white fingers as she played. That was beautiful, isn't it? And that was the description, the charm she used to bring to the audience when she used to play her piano. Now, who was Clara Schumann? In 1819, she was born in Leipzig. Her father was a piano teacher, Friedrich Wick, and he was a piano seller as well. Her mother was a soprano. But Clara didn't speak for quite some time. She played her piano before she could speak. Her father knew that this child is a little different, and he didn't waste a moment. So Clara took all her piano lessons. Clara got her musical knowledge and her library from her dad, Friedrich Wick. But Wick wasn't a very easy person to live with. He was very dominating. He psychologically tortured his children and his wife. Hence, his wife, Marion, left him when Clara was 3. And legally, Clara stayed with Marion till the age of 5, and then, according to the law of Germany, Clara was sent back to his dad. So, Friedrich Wick was the one who actually brought her up. And till the last day of her life, she did acknowledge that Friedrich Wick was the one who was responsible for her development as a true virtuoso pianist and as a composer and as a musician as a whole. But unfortunately, the Wick household was not a very happy household to live in. But when Clara was quite young, Robert Schumann came to stay there as Friedrich Wick's student. So from very childhood, Clara used to exchange musical games, riddles, and secret messages regarding the compositions she did. And she used to play Robert Schumann's compositions from the age of 9. And at the age of 21, she got married to Robert Schumann. What was Robert Schumann to her? But before I go there, I need to share what Robert Schumann thought about their musical union. Because this marriage was a marriage between two artists. There was immense artistic thirst in them. So this is not an ordinary marriage, which is with a love story behind it. So before I go and read out what she thought about Robert Schumann, I just, as I said, I'm going to share what Robert Schumann actually thought about their union. He said to her, "We will also publish a certain amount in both of our names. Posterity should regard us as one heart and soul, and be unable to tell what is by you and what is by me." So that says the depth of this relationship. Now, again, living with Robert Schumann wasn't that easy. As I have been exploring his music for past 2 episodes, this month in Pianist magazine, again another very famous pianist, Helen Grimaud, wrote beautifully about Robert Schumann's music. But that gives an idea about the person of Robert Schumann. And though this episode is about Clara, but I just wanted to bring the fact that what are the challenges Clara had to go through in her life to live with a person like Robert Schumann. Because we all know about his bipolarity, eccentricity, but he was a genius. So, as Helen Grimaud says, with Schumann, you always feel that you are off balance, but there is something wonderful about it. This music connects you with a wildest trick that we all carry within us, which we are sometimes happy to sweep under the carpet because it's more convenient, and because in daily life it's rather disruptive. But you have to be able to go there because it is the part of who you are. And if you ignore it, or you refuse to face it, or you find no outlet for it, then it's ultimately unhealthy. And Schumann gives us the possibility of going there. So this is Robert Schumann. And what Clara thought about Robert Schumann. If I read out that, again, a little passage. It is from the beautiful book written by Nancy Reich about Clara Schumann, the artist and woman. She wrote a letter on 1839, April 4th. Listen, Robert, won't you for once compose something brilliant and easy to understand? Something that has no titles, but hangs together as a whole, not too long, not too short. I want so much to have something of yours to play publicly. Sometimes that suits the audience. It is indeed humiliating for a genius, but policy demands it for once. That year in September, again she writes a letter to Robert. I'm often painted that in her diary actually. I'm often painted that Robert's compositions are not recognized as they deserve to be. I would gladly play them, but public doesn't understand them. I'm so afraid that someday Robert will have to witness the fact that these compositions arouse little interest in comparison with others' works that are dull and insipid. I think this will be dreadful for him. He has much too deep an intellect for the world, and because of this, must he be misunderstood? I believe that the best thing is for him to compose for orchestra. His fantasy is limited by the piano. The piano doesn't have enough scope. His pieces are all in orchestral style, and I think that is why they are so inaccessible to the public. The melodies and the figures cross so much that it takes a great deal to discover all their beauties. And she ends saying that if Beethoven and Mozart were alive today, he would be the third in the Trinity. The time will come when the world will recognize the third one, but it will come late. His improvisations hold such a wealth of fantasy that one can only be continually amazed. My greatest wish is that he compose for orchestra. That is his realm. If I could only succeed in persuading him. So it was not very easy for her to persuade him to write which audience will like. But what she felt about his health conditions, in the earliest days of her relationship, she either minimized the issue or saw it as part and parcel of his genius. When Robert heard voices, which we all know, hurling him into hell, making it impossible for him to sleep, Clara focused on the creative nature of the voices. She viewed Robert's illness as being of a religious nature. As one biographer has pointed out, she placed him in the role of the artist who remains forever beyond reach, beyond reproach, and notably beyond human vulnerability or failure. So that is Clara Schumann, who said that Robert's music will be understood one day, but for that we have to wait. And she was so right. Now, coming to her own compositions. She composed 23 pieces with opus number and 23 without opus. She was mainly a pianist because she loved that. She loved to perform in front of the audience. But the compositions she did not do, but the composition she used to really enjoy to do with Robert, because Robert Schumann collected quite a few songs which called Lieder in German and kept it in their marriage diary, which they both used to share together. And he wanted both of them to compose like a question and answer. And Clara used to enjoy that bit, but she couldn't do much because she had huge responsibilities at the domestic level. And there are a lot of controversies regarding her compositional career, because after 1856, Robert Schumann's death, she didn't compose at all. But as a woman, I could understand that with 7 children and the other huge responsibilities, she did not get enough time or to do justice to her composition. So that's why maybe the reason she stopped. And she kept on touring and giving concerts, earning the money for the household to run and take care of her 7 children. But she had many friends, and we know that among her in her friend circle, the people like Mendelssohn, Chopin, they used to love when she used to play their composition, and she played with Mendelssohn as well. And in his words, we know that Mendelssohn said to her once that, I'm always ready to play with you, after they played Bach together. And I'm always thinking of playing something with you whenever you want to give me that pleasure. And she had quite a few friends who were not only her musical partner, but she used to share her domestic affairs. She used to have small talks with them now and then. Among them, we can actually mention one of the friends, who is called Henrietta Rickman. This young woman, who was with her in Paris in 1839 as both student and companion. And sorry, why I'm mentioning Henrietta's name, because she later moved to Hull, England. I'm sitting here 20 minutes drive from Hull. So the world is small, and Miss Rickman offered to come to London for Clara's first British concert tour in 1856, and obviously extending her friendship and support to the lonely, depressed pianist. We all know that 1856 was the year when she lost Robert Schumann, the inspiration, the love of her life. And now coming to today's composition. But before that, there is so much to talk about her. But due to the time limitation, before I go to the musical section, another person who was very important in her life was Brahms. After 1856, the deep friendship she shared with Brahms, that kept her going to some extent. The musical world actually not always understood this friendship. As Nancy Reich wrote in her book, Though neither Clara Schumann or Brahms ever denied the deep love they felt for each other, but it was absolutely a musical union. And all evidence points to a platonic relationship. And the musical and the personal interaction between them tells us that they, again, just like with Robert Schumann, they had the same goal. They had an artistic thirst which they wanted to gain, which they wanted to achieve, and which they wanted to share with. In order to achieve it, they shared the artistic friendship with each other. Clara played Brahms' compositions all over Europe, and whenever Brahms used to compose anything, he used to consult Clara, just like Robert Schumann did. So in 3 phases of her life, if we look at it, Frederick Wick, her dad, Robert Schumann, her husband, and her best friend, Johannes Brahms. With these 3 men, her connection is actually based on her art, which was her life, her music. Now, talking about the musical piece I have chosen to play today, that also has got a bit of story behind it. I did mention about the Lieders, the songs, which Robert Schumann collected and wrote it in their diary, marriage diary. And the song I chose today, it was written by Frederick Ruckert. He was also a very renowned poet and songwriter, lieder writer. And Ruckert in 1880 came to Germany, went to Vienna to study Persian and Arabic languages, because Ruckert wanted to know about the Oriental literature, and from there he took the ghazals. Ghazals are the poetry which have got certain fixed verses and repeated rhymes, and they are very rich how far literature is concerned, because they talk about love, they talk about separation in love, and the beauty of love in spite of the pain, mostly. So Ruckert did a collection of 400 songs for his wife, and Schumann took few songs from there, quite a few. So among those songs, the one I have chosen, Clara composed it for Robert's birthday in 1841, 8th of June. 1841 was one of the year when they had the best time together in their life. They got just married in 1840. And Robert Schumann was so happy that he got it published for Clara's birthday, 13th of September in 1841, as a gift to her. So it has got immense importance in terms of many reasons. Ruckert wrote it for his wife, the love of his life. Clara Schumann selected it and wanted it to be composed by one of them. And Clara, again, in spite of her all domestic duties, her busy career as a pianist, she chose it to compose and gift it to Robert Schumann. And lastly, Robert got it published for her on her birthday. So with that history in mind, I will just read out the little poem, which is a translated version, and then I will go ahead and play it. There are so much to talk about her, but I wanted to paint a picture which will give an idea about her mind, about her persona, and as a whole, how her life was. So let me read out that beautiful poem for all of you, and then I will go ahead and play the music. And I have decided that I'll end the episode by just playing the voice version of this particular song. I think then we will do the right justice to the whole composition. Obviously, that voice version I'll play from one of the recordings on the internet, and I will give the description about the singer, the name, and the description where it was played, and the pianist in the description box. So coming to the poem is a very famous one, Lips zum Schönheit. If you love for beauty. If you love for beauty, oh love not me, love the sun. She has golden hair. If you love for youth, oh love not me, love the spring, which is young each year. If you love for wealth, oh love not me, love the mermaid who has many shining pearls. If you love for love, oh yes, love me. Love me always, I shall love you even more. How beautiful. And I can completely understand this is carrying the emotion of not only Reich but Robert Schumann and Clara Schumann as well. Let me play the music, and then we will listen to the voice and end the episode. Thanks very much for listening. Thank you. Now I'll play the voice. Thanks very much for listening. Thank you.